Welcome back to another episode of Trash Talk with the K-Roos brothers. I'm Jon-Bernard. This is Nick, where we bring you what's happening around the world in combat sports. Nick, tough weekend. Listen, Francis Ngannou came back. It was great to see. He fought for his son. He finally got that moment. But one of our Australian boys, Tim Tszyu, got absolutely bashed, and it was tough to watch.
Look, I thought you were going to talk about us, tough weekend than our bodies.
Yeah,
I'm a bit
we
sore
did wrestle.
still. We were wrestling. We were involved in the combat sports space this weekend.
Melbourne City Wrestling Fight to Survive. We were a part of the 5-on-5 main event. My back's still seizing up. I'm struggling.
It was a lot more than what we expected. Taking bumps is not easy. So to the wrestlers out there,
Full credit to you. I want to shout out to Slex, Adam Brooks, the wrestlers that were there with us. You know, they taught us a lot over the weekend. It's an unbelievable... Look, you got to give credit to those wrestlers. The bumps that they take, they're on the road all the time. The way that they sequence the matches, there's so much that goes behind the scenes. I want to give my respect to the wrestlers.
so we lost that match on the weekend.
We lost the battle, not the war.
Then Tim Tszyu lost his fight on the weekend. Very tough weekend for us. Look, it was just cop and L's all weekend.
Because we had tipped Tim Tszyu to win. And we were listening to a lot of the Australian media. You know, we looked at Backram's highlights and the way that his 22-0 run has been stretched over kind of 10 years. We thought he didn't really fight similar opponents that Tim Tszyu had fought. So we tipped Tim Tszyu to win by knockout, at least within 6 rounds.
The way even Tim Tszyu himself said, he had a great camp. The way he was selling himself pre-fight, he's had the best he's ever felt.
Yeah.
His dad was in Orlando. It's like, hey,
He was confident going in.
I got caught up in the media storm. Like, sue me for being misled by the media.
Well, look what happened. Tim Tszyu his team had to throw in the towel at round 3.
Which I don't like. Look, I get you trying to save him, but like...
He went down on his shield, mate.
The ref told him, look, one more knockdown, it's over. So just let him fall.
No, it was getting dangerous to the point where he couldn't defend himself. He had lost his legs. It was 3 knockdowns in round 2, 1 knockdown in the 3rd. I can't believe he kept getting back up. Speaks to the bravery of Tim Tszyu. The guy's he's an animal, he's a warrior, but he just looked out of his depth against Bakram. Like, this guy just had power punches, kept hitting that left hook. It just looked rough. And then Tim had to face the media afterwards. I think that was pretty tough. I wouldn't have let him face the media. He was obviously concussed, and he was shattered. He just said, you know, Bakram was the better man on the night.
He doesn't know what he got hit with.
Yeah, he was coming forward, and he just kind of left himself open. Wasn't the Tim Tszyu that we saw face Fundora, where he was kind of protecting himself, especially in those early rounds?
Well, this goes now to my hot take for this week. Hot take this week, Tim Tszyu's American boxing career is over.
I would listen to how other people have reacted to his loss. Sean Porter came out and said he needs to go back to Australia and needs to rebuild his career from there. I don't know if that means new management. All I'm saying is he needs to get some wins on the board, could fight like a Michael Zarafa, another prominent Australian boxer, start building his record back up, and then go back overseas and fight some serious contenders.
Look, I'm no boxing expert. I don't know much about it. There's obviously a lot more people that know a lot more about this sport. But from what the comments I was reading on the weekend, there's just a level above. When you go to America, there's an elite boxing level that people think maybe Tim Tszyu's not at. Because when you're in Australia, these are the comments talking.
They think Aussies aren't at.
You're versing plumbers. You're versing part-time boxers. They're not really all that. So when Tim Tszyu versus them, of course, he's going to be much, much better
That's
than
what
them.
a lot of people were saying online. It's a difference between versing actual contenders to people elevating your record. But I will say, other boxers have come out and spoken. Crawford came out and said Tim Tszyu had his eyes on other opponents. He was looking past his fighter and got lazy, and Bakram made him pay for it. Caleb Plant came out and said he had respect for Tim Tszyu. Went out on his shield, acknowledged that he was a better man. He'll learn from this. He still thinks he's a tremendous fighter, and he still holds a lot of name value and will go on to still fight some serious contenders.
And we have to talk about it because there was a lot of backlash towards his management on the weekend.
Yeah.
They said they should have stopped the fight against Fundora when his head got split
Looking
open.
at it in hindsight, definitely.
And then setting up a fight against a big striker in this Russian, which was obviously going to be something that wasn't going to be an easy task. They should have set him up with someone coming off his first career loss that he was going to get a win against. But I don't like that either, because if you're a boxer, you got to think you're the best in the world. You got to go up against anybody.
That's why he took Bakram. That's why he said, I still want tough challenges. I just don't want people that are just going to elevate me. He wanted to fight the best. And full credit to him. I just didn't think it was going to be done that quick. Ariel Helwani came out and said, what happened to Tim Tszyu? Sean Porter, like I said he needs to go back to Australia.
Which I think that's going to happen now, unless he somehow gets, an undercard of somebody else.
With the criticism that happens to his team now, when they said that the cornermen should have kind of stopped the fight against Fundora with that cut. Now they're booking fights against, they had that Saudi Arabian card that they could have been on, the Riyadh season card. They said no to, took this fight with Bakram Murtazalev. does Tim now look at possibly new management? Does he look at trying to change his trainer? Because obviously the game plan didn't work for this fight.
Yeah, look, I don't know if he changes it, but just maybe make some additions. Maybe get some other people in, give them a bit more advice. It doesn't always have to be, I'm going to completely reject everything I've done previously. I'll go back to what I've got done, maybe add a few extra things, talk to someone else that's been in that similar position. Maybe, I don't know, new management, because No Limit have done pretty well for him.
George Kambosos pretty much said, look, full credit to Tim. He went out, fought some of the best. But at the end of the day, there's other boxers in Australia that people should be looking at. Himself, Jai Opatai, the Maloney brothers. There's a lot of boxers that don't get the same light shone on them like Tim does.
George Kambosos, I think your time's passed, yeah. Maybe, I think I'll listen to other boxers' thoughts on it, but maybe not Kambosos. I think he's at his 2 main events. I think Tim Tszyu, is he going to fight him? Is he trying to call him out?
What's next for Tim Tszyu? Michael Zarafa took straight away to his Instagram story, saw everyone tweeting about it's a perfect time to face Michael Zarafa right now. Is that the next move for Tim Tszyu? Tim Tszyu versus Michael Zarafa?
Well, I thought it was going to be Nikita Tszyu, but because Tim's lost now, it's like, he's brought back down to this level of he's got to fight a Zarafa?
Well, at the end of the day, Tim needs a win. You can't come 2 losses and then go try and fight a rematch with Fundora again. I think his stock has gone down after this fight.
But if he does versus Fundora and win, stock's back up.
I know, but he needs to get that rematch.
And he's still got the verbal rematch clause. Is it still there?
I think if you just get a few wins in Australia and you go back to that Fundora fight, if Fundora is still the title holder.
If Fundora gives him the opportunity to fight, you take that no matter what. You don't give up at a title fight opportunity. So I think,
anyway,
but I think he's going to get that. So I think he's got to go.
I liked hearing Ben Damon on the call because he was having hope behind Tim Tszyu, saying it's going to be tough for him to come back when he had those knockdowns. The American commentators, on the other hand, say they knocked him down straight back down under.
Yeah, that's
very rough.
Once they called the matchup, they go, Tim Tszyu just got knocked back straight down under. I was like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, very rough.
Way to take a shit on a country.
Yeah, but look, I think there's still a lot of hope for Tim. His name holds a lot of value, Tim Tszyu. He strings a few wins together, he's straight back in America.
Look, you don't always have to be undefeated. I know it does hurt to cop a couple losses. You could have said he beat Fundora, but just because you lose, your career's not over. People are reacting like, oh, maybe Tim should give it up. It's like, mate, the guy's in the prime of his career. He lost the fight against a good boxer. Move on, okay? He can go back to training camp. He can verse another guy. He can win a title.
I'd like to see him with new management, new trainers, and see how he goes. Maybe training with his dad full time in Russia overseas. Who knows? I want to see a brand new Tim Tszyu when he fights next. And I don't think it's going to be. I think he'll take some time off after this. You're gonna need some time off after pretty much 2 head-banging performances.
Yeah. You want some breathing room in your head. Just give it some space.
I'd say around March, June next year is his next fight.
Hey, you never know. What if he just says, you know what, fuck this, I want to go in December. You never know.
Who knows? Now, someone who came back, I want to touch on really quickly over the weekend, Francis Ngannou. Pretty much solidifies himself as the best heavyweight outside of the UFC.
Okay, yeah. Well,
outside of the UFC.
I thought you were going to say in the world. I was like, hey,
no.
relax.
I know John Jones. I glaze Dana White and John Jones. I'm with John Jones here. But is Francis Ngannou... that's how, if an MMA fight happened with Anthony Joshua, would have taken place.
Oh, of course.
He would have cleaned him up exactly like that.
Francis Ngannou beating this Brazilian behemoth.
A lot of people had Ferreira to beat him.
Well, Conor McGregor,
$500,000 bet on him. Chael Sonnen, who honestly has a lot of bold predictions that don't come to fruition. I want to call out Chael on that. Very knowledgeable guy. But he said Ferreira's going to knock this guy out too.
I think that was more so buying into the guy can do a backflip. The guy's a behemoth.
He was going off John Jones' recommendation as well.
He's undefeated. So it wasn't just like, they weren't completely wrong in that. But I think people did forget Francis Ngannou was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, the most feared man in that division, the most feared fighter in the world, really.
But what does it say about the PFL?
It says it's a step below. And I think people like Conor McGregor have come out and said the PFL will forever be the UFC's little brother because the top talent, the best talent in the world, will be fighting in the UFC. The PFL, you're going to get the afterthoughts. You're going to get the leftovers.
You're the AEW of WWE.
It is. It is what it is. It doesn't mean they can't have a good product. Doesn't mean they can't put on good shows.
Conor McGregor didn't just take shit on it. He videoed himself reacting to these guys wrestling, calling them crotch sniffers, saying, oh, this is so exciting. This is so exciting. And they're just wrestling each other.
Which I'm very surprised he did because I thought, him and the Saudi Arabians were good relationship.
Connor's honest. At least he's honest. He's saying people want to see striking. They want to see entertainment. They don't want to see wrestlers just taking control over each other and doing nothing with it for 30 minutes.
But John Jones himself came out and congratulated Francis Ngannou, said, good on you, champ. But does this mean now, John Jones, Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou, we could be in the best era of heavyweights in MMA, but neither of these 3 fighters will ever have a match against each other?
Look, I think with Dana maybe still having that relationship with Turkey Al Sheikh, something can be arranged. I think within the next 5 years,
There's no way a PFL UFC crossover is happening. Dana's already ruled that out.
Not a crossover, but I don't think it's the last time we've seen Francis Ngannou, in the UFC. I think they eventually bring him back because he's a talent that draws. He's one of the scarier heavyweights, and you want to see Tom Aspinall go against him. I don't think John Jones is going to go up against Francis Ngannou. That's past now. But when you say this is the best era for heavyweight fighters in general, boxing and MMA, it is. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dubois. Then you got the MMA fighters. Tom Aspinall, John Jones fighting now. You know what I mean?
But I'm saying,
Stipe Miocic.
Have you all but accepted that John Jones is going to retire after this fight?
No, there's too much money to be made.
So he's going
Everyone's saying, and he's saying it's going to be his swan song. It's his last paycheck, his big bag before he goes off. No, because there's so much money to be made with this Tom Aspinall fight. Tom Aspinall's made enough noise and had enough quick knockouts that I think it's going to be Aspinall-Jones, and that's the next big pay-per-view draw for the UFC.
Out of those three fighters, Ngannou, Jones, Aspinall, which of those fights do you see being made happen?
Aspinall-Jones.
That's the only one?
That's the only one. It's going to be too long before I see Francis because Francis still wants to go into boxing. Ariel Helwani's talking about having Francis Ngannou face not Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou facing Deontay Wilder in a boxing match, which I don't think many people want to see, but they've had their issues with the UFC. France is going to be a while before he ever thinks about coming back to the UFC. It's going to be Aspinall versus Jones. I think they make that next.
I mean, Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall down the line could versus Ngannou. You never know.
Aspinall's a backup fighter right now. So if Stipe pulls out, I'm not saying that happens, but there's a chance that happens there. Say John Jones wins this fight, which I think he does. Aspinall's going to be there in the crowd calling him out. There's going to be some fanfare around, hey, you beat this old guy, now face the best in the division.
Hey, I hope it does because I just want to see entertaining fights.
Speaking about people calling out people, because Aspinall has been calling out John Jones for the better part of 2 years, Ian Garry took to Instagram into Kamaru Usman's comments and pretty much said, sign the contract, let's go in December.
Well, Kamaru Usman was alluding to the fact that he wants to fight. He's obviously been off since October. It's been a year now since Usman's last fought. And Ian Garry then took to say, UFC Tampa, December 14th, sign the contract. Like, I've accepted the fight. Like, Ian Garry, mate, it doesn't work like this. You don't just call out.
I don't want to see Usman on a fight night either.
Exactly. Like, Usman is a pay-per-view fighter. Usman is a top 5 ranked fighter. Could be in line for the title shot.
I would have thought December he would have been alluding to possibly being on that 310 card.
Look, Ian Garry, the only fight.
I want to see Ian Garry get humbled because you talked all this shit against Michael Venom Page. And what did you do? Hug him for 3 rounds? Michael Venom Page had the shits. Like, it was...
Dana had the shits.
Did nothing with the control. If anything, that fight, yes, you beat an MVP, but he wasn't really an accomplished UFC fighter. And your stock kind of gone down. You need a Colby Covington draw fight or this Kamaru Usman fight to prove yourself in the division. And Kamaru Usman can shut him up.
Well, look, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you can't verse him because there's nothing to gain from having that fight.
Especially after a recent loss.
Colby Covington, that's the only person you can fight because... No one in the top 5 wants to fight Colby because they're done.
Buckley could be a fight. Joaquin Buckley, who just beat Wonderboy Thompson. It's a name. It's a name.
Sell enough for him,
Ian Garry, though, is a name to beat in the division right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of put yourself in the rankings further.
You can make that argument, but for him to call out Kamaru Usman, very wishful thinking. You know? And the manner in which he does it, that's where he needs to be humbled. It's like, listen, mate, you're not a name.
I don't know if you could put 2 heels against each other too. A lot of people hate Colby Covington and a lot of people hate Ian Garry. Who does the crowd get behind there? If it happens in America, I'm telling you right now, people get behind Colby Covington.
The way it'll happen is if you hate Colby, you go for Ian. If you hate Ian, you go for Colby. That's the way it is.
But then everything's going to come about his
wife. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's how it works.
I'm going to be intrigued by it, but Ian Garry needs to fight soon.
Well, I think he fought in July?
If he's calling out Colby and Usman, 2 opponents that haven't fought in a while, he wants to fight before the end of the year, which is obvious.
He was UFC 303 his last fight, so like it would be nice if he fought in December, but that card's already done, so maybe January, February, look to get on that.
Sean Strickland's pretty much confirmed the DDP fight will happen. They don't have a date and a location 100% locked in yet.
Well, he put out on his Twitter, which was in complete contradiction to what DDP said last week, because DDP said, yeah, I'll be probably fighting on that Australia card. Like, so what's going on here? Who's telling the lie? Because Sean Strickland, if he does know he's going to be in line for the title shot, and DDP saying it's going to be in Sydney, why would Strickland think otherwise?
Yeah, well, they've got to agree upon it. I mean, in their contracts. Strickland's copped a lot of shit. Strickland's had to fight in Canada for his first title defense. When he won the title, he had to go to Australia. And he keeps saying, you put me in places where the government's going to hate me. I like fighting on my home soil. I think it would be advantageous for Strickland to get an American fight. You saw how the crowd reacted to him in New Jersey. They loved him. They got right behind him, right? But being the champion in DDP, he's going to want a South African fight, which they haven't really landed on yet. They said it's going to be difficult to make. And otherwise, the crowd got very much behind him against Izzy here in Perth. So I could see them fighting in Sydney again.
Yeah, well, it just makes sense. What else? What other fight? Unless Volkanovski, Topuria is going to be on there. But Topuria said he's looking at a fight in April in Spain, potentially. So, like, Topuria, Volkanovski, is that going to happen in February? Probably unlikely.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense who they're going to put on all these cards. I think they've got to be a lot more honest in these tweets because every fighter's putting out random fight news about who they're fighting, who they want to fight.
Dustin Poirier has been teasing the fight news for the past 3 months.
Yeah, and that never comes out or it's just a massive lie. So, like, they're going to be held accountable for this. They're going to start finding him if they're starting to put out untruthful or, information that they shouldn't be putting out.
I want to see Strickland back in Australia, selfishly. He's comedy gold, right? And it's great for the lead up. It's great for the press conference. And it's going to be good to see them go to tango again. Last time we saw them, I mean,
5-round thriller.
And Strickland started crying in the lead up. They were going at each other's pass. I think they've gained some respect for each other, so we'll see what happens with that. That's going to be interesting, DDP versus Sean Strickland. But let's get into the UFC 308 preview, UFC Abu Dhabi. Nick, we're flying out tonight to go cover the event. I'm keen to interview the fighters. Let us know what you want us to ask the fighters when we're over there in Abu Dhabi. But let's start off with the first fight off the back. Shara the Bullet Magomedov is fighting. He's coming into this fight as the favorite against Armen. I'm not going to go and pronounce his name. I'm just going to call him Armen.
Well, look, Shara the Bullet, off a great victory earlier in the year, still lends himself to be a lot more open to some strikes. He's not your typical Dagestani fighter, okay? He's a striker, not a wrestler. And he loves to put on a show. He's got the one eye, looks like a villain in a movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to take him. I've jumped on the bandwagon of Shara the Bullet. I'm a big Magomedov fan. So Shara the Bullet, I'll take him to win here easily.
I've been following his movie career. He was just playing a undercover UPS agent. And some director said that they loved his look, cast him in a movie in the US. Only time he's been allowed in the US because he can't fight there, obviously. All his fights have been in Abu Dhabi, pretty much, or Saudi Arabia, right? And he's got a pretty good record over there. I don't know if the judges like him, but at the end of the day, I love his striking. People said he can get caught out with his grappling. He can get caught out, if he goes up against a good wrestler, but they're really testing him in that division. He called out Kevin Holland previously, which I thought would have been a good matchup, but I'm going to take him as the favorite here.
Look, there's a rule in these Abu Dhabi cards, not to be like if you're of Dagestani origin or if you're some sort of Islamist country, you're probably going to win this fight because that's the way they set it up for you. They want the home crowd to get behind these fighters.
And I look, everyone's saying, is he going to get fraud checked, the Bullet? I don't think so. I don't think, Armen is a strong enough grappler. It's probably going to be a striking battle in this one, and I'm going with Shara.
Yep, easy. What's next?
Next up, we've got Magomed Ankalaev versus Rakic. Nick, I think for this one, it can go either way. I know it's in Abu Dhabi, and this was the last time we saw Magomed Ankalaev fight was in Abu Dhabi against Johnny Walker. It's been some time since then.
Well, he fought on the fight night in January, but since we've actually seen him
since we last saw him, he's got a good record there. I just think you can't underestimate Rakic, but Ankalaev's just got too much to fight for. All he's been doing is calling out Pereira for the last year on Twitter that they want to make this fight happen. His management want to make this fight happen. Pereira's acknowledged him. He needs to win this fight to make that fight happen.
Well, let's look at Rakic. His last fight was against Yuri Prohaska at UFC 300. It was a prelim fight, but probably could have easily been on the main card. He was the favorite in that fight. Looked very good early. Just got caught late in the fight against Yuri Prohaska. Yuri Prohaska's a great fighter, obviously a former champion. So it's not like he's a bum. He's not a bum that can obviously just get run through by Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev, yes, is a good fighter, and it's in Abu Dhabi, so it's kind of got that home crowd advantage, home crowd fight. That's the only reason I think he might just get the edge in this fight. It's a 3-round fight, not too much to look for in the back end of the round. Maybe Rakic can catch him late. But, Rakic can easily catch him. It's one of those fights
where...
And
the thing is, I think Ankalaev wants to send a message to Pereira.
Yeah, but he's going to make an effort doing that.
He's going to make an effort to strike and make a statement so he could call out Pereira after the fight. So I think he's going to probably deviate away from his grappling, which he can do. And no light heavyweight wants to grapple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the way that I'm excited for it. It makes it better.
I know it's going to make for a better fight, but strategically, is it going to be smart? I don't know. And you can't sleep on Rakic, like you said. He's a very technical fighter, and I think he can obviously get the job done. He went toe-to-toe with Jan Blachowicz, which, I know he lost that fight, but Again, he outstruck him. I want to see him. I want to see how he can go.
Yeah, look, if he's at $4.10 on the day of the fight, I might just put a bit on that just to get me through the fight. You make it a bit more interesting. Because if it's that value, it's just too much to not. $1.20 for Ankalaev. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Dan Ige versus Lerone Murphy.
Dan Ige obviously came into our field division when he came in on short notice against Diego Lopez.
Such a short notice, 3 hours notice.
Yeah, so
Unbelievable.
that's why I think he's kind of got a bit of fanfare coming into this fight.
He's coming in as a dog.
He's the outsider, yeah, underdog. And out of respect for him, I'll put some money on him. Just I don't really know too much about his opponent. I don't know really too much about, how this fight's going to go, but it's one of those featherweight fights that, look, it could go the distance. I'll probably just back it as a distance fight.
Well, look, Lerone Murphy, undefeated UK striker. I think he's got some respect on his name coming in to this fight as a favorite. But like you said, Dan Ige's shown that he does have some punching power. I'm undecided on this one. I'm going to go with the favorite, the striker out of the UK, Lerone Murphy. I think he's probably going to get it done looking at his previous highlights. I think he's probably fought some better opponents as well. But don't sleep on Dan Ige. I mean, he had a great showing against Diego Lopez.
He's now the third-ranked fighter in that division. So, if he's contending with him doing a good job, he can obviously get the win.
Here we go to the co-main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker, the Reaper. Nick, as Aussies, I feel like we're obliged to go with Robert Whittaker. But if I'm betting with my mind, I'm going with Khamzat.
Look, I do like Robert Whittaker. He's a nice guy. We've met him in person. He's been very nice towards us. But Khamzat Chimaev, I'm just a fanboy. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? I can't. I like Khamzat Chimaev. He's scary. He's one of the best fighters in the UFC when he actually is on and actually fighting, not pulling out of fights. It's obviously a week out from the fight now, so he's not going to pull out. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
But if he's made
he doesn't end up in hospital.
If he's made it this far into the fight camp, I think he is fighting. Khamzat Chimaev, he's the favorite, but hey, it's like,
listen, both fighters are coming in extremely confident. Okay, Khamzat Chimaev, this is word for word what he said. I don't care about this guy. Why should I be worried about him? I'm the complete MMA fighter. I'm the best wrestler in the UFC.
Which is very confident. But Robert Whittaker's reply to that,
I'm exceptional at it all. Okay, I'm faster. I'm a better striker. I'm a hard guy to take down. This isn't a wrestling match. It's an MMA fight. So in saying that, Whittaker coming off that win against against Ikram Aleksandar, where Khamzat pulled out of that fight. And you weren't going to see the best Khamzat there. He was training in Dubai. Everyone said he was getting lazy. He's now moved his camp back to the USSR, right?
That's been dissolved since 1990. But he's moved it back to Russia, back to where he obviously knows a bit more about. Well, he's with his team. I think he's with some former Soviet Union wrestling coach. He's getting the best preparation possible for this fight.
If Khamzat's coming in confident to this fight, I think he's just way too scary of an opponent. And he's going to do what he did to Usman. He's going to wear him down. It's a 5-round fight, which a lot of people said if it goes longer, they favor Robert Whittaker. But at the end of the day, I think we've seen Whittaker lose early on before. I think Khamzat's going to surprise a lot of people, not be scared to stand up and strike, but definitely going to lean on his wrestling and just smother this guy.
Well, the big question that comes into this fight, if Khamzat can't take down Robert Whittaker, can he win in a striking battle? And my answer to that is yes. Yes, he can.
Yeah.
You've seen Khamzat because he can strike. Against Gilbert Burns, he actually got into a bit of a striking battle.
Kamaru Usman, they struck as well.
If you go back before the UFC, when he versed Ikram Aleksandar, he knocked him out. It was a striking battle. He can and has the ability to strike opponents. Just because he overwhelms people and he's overbearing with his wrestling doesn't mean he can't strike.
Well, Robert Whittaker's
I don't want him to. I don't want him to go stay to your game plan, Khamzat.
Whittaker's in tremendous shape. This is probably the best Whittaker we're going to see. He's zoned in. He's been defending a lot of wrestling. He prepared like that for the Ikram fight. Nothing really changed. I'm just saying I'm betting with my mind. Khamzat's the favorite. I'm going with Khamzat Chimaev. I think he's just going to be too much for Whittaker.
Who does the UFC want to win this fight?
I think they're building Khamzat.
Exactly.
Khamzat's a bigger draw. He's the boogeyman of that division. He's got a massive following.
Who sells better?
As big as Robert Whittaker is, I think he's on the last few fights of his career, and he's been great for the sport. He's been great for Australian MMA, but I just think the UFC would rather Khamzat Chimaev win. You're right.
Well, I think Khamzat sells better.
Yeah.
Besides the issue of maybe potentially not being allowed in the US, that might be an issue that the UFC is not the biggest fan of. But they've got multiple fights out of Abu Dhabi, out of Saudi Arabia. They can fight 2 times a year out of those 2, locations easily.
Let's go to the main event. Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. For the featherweight title, the BMF title is not on the line. Even though Ilia Topuria Ilia Topuria has been walking around with a replica BMF belt. He's saying he's already won. He did this last time when he fought Volkanovski. He put featherweight champ in his bio. He kind of manifests these things. Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway, who are you taking?
I'm taking Ilia Topuria. I know that the popular thing to do is not go against Max Holloway because he's a legend of the sport. He's a legend of the UFC. But Ilia Topuria, you talk about complete fighter. He can strike. He can wrestle. He can do everything. And he does it so well. And his striking power, look, yes, Max has a chin, but he can get caught. Tom Aspinall, who on his Twitter this week, on his socials this week, came out and did a preview of the fight. And he expects Max Holloway to drop in this fight. He expects Ilia Topuria to land a couple strikes that are damaging enough to drop Max Holloway. If an expert like that, how can I go against that advice?
Well, someone that's faced Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria came out and disagreed with that. Volkanovski said he's taking Max Holloway. He's been in the octagon with Max before, and he said he's just going to outwork him. He's going to do too much work. And Ilia, someone that likes to stand in the pocket and trade, is going to get caught on the outside by Max Holloway. That's Volk's professional opinion. Now, that's someone who's lost to Ilia and beat Max 3 times. But, you know, I take that with a grain of salt too. I think Volk can be correct. Max is going to outwork him, especially as the fight goes later. Ilia's going to want to finish him within the first 3 rounds. But I think what a lot of people are sleeping on is because Ilia knocked the shit out of Volkanovski, I think they're going to think it's a stand-up striking battle. And it's not the case. Ilia said he's going to try and point to the ground in the first 10 seconds, but I think if his striking is not up to scratch and Max is beating him in the striking, he's going to lean heavily on his wrestling. And when he grapples with Max, I think he's going to tap him out.
Well,
I'm going to take Ilia by submission.
Max Holloway did respond to Ilia Topuria's call out. Ilia said, I'll point to the ring.
First 10 seconds, I'm pointing
and
down.
Let's strike, let's go at it. Max Holloway says, listen, mate, I don't think you get it. That's not what that's for. I point to the middle of the ring because it's for the last 10 seconds of the fight.
I'll make it an entertaining fight. I give the other fighter another chance. He said, this isn't the baddest motherfucker moment. This is not supposed
to correctly say this, he said, this isn't the dumbest motherfucker thing. Like, I don't point to the ring. That's obviously a stupid thing to do in the first 10 seconds, okay? He obviously wants to use his fight IQ, fight correctly. He only does that point when he wants to after a good fight and to entertain the fans even more.
So pretty much he's declined his offer to meet in the middle of the ring in the first 10 seconds.
Which is that Ilia Topuria winning the mind games going into this fight?
I think so. I think he respects Ilia's striking. Because it kind of, look, it's
not
the mind games he's saying.
I don't want to say it, but this makes Max Holloway look like a pussy.
No. That's Max being smart. Max has zoned in. He's been training. He looks
but
like
just in the media say, hey, if you're going to point, I'll knock you out. Like, you know, just go along with it. I feel like he kind of lost the media battle here.
I think he doesn't want to lose the fanfare around Max Holloway being the best boxer in the UFC. He's saying, why would I scrap with you pointing down in the first 10 seconds? That's not what it's supposed to be. I think he's going to go and meet him and strike him and get a feel of how he is. But why would you just go and trade off in the first 10 seconds? That's dumb.
It is a very stupid.
It'll be a dumb game plan. I'm with Max Holloway here. Get a feel of it. I think this goes. It definitely could go to decision. But if it ends up grappling, I think you got to be really worried about Ilia Topuria submitting Max Holloway.
Saying, if I was Max Holloway, I would have just called him out on his bluff. Because realistically, did you expect Topuria to do that in the first 10 seconds? No. There was no chance he was going to do it. So Max Holloway, I get you showing your fight IQ here, but just call him on his bluff. Now, play the role.
After previewing the card, is this going to be the best card of the year?
Well, it has the potential to. One, because there's no female fights on this card.
I was about to say, there's no toilet break.
So there's a big chance that, you know, it's entertaining from start to finish. No, but in all seriousness, there's 2 big fights. The co-main event is massive.
Yeah.
Then you add in Ankalaev, which has massive ramifications for that division.
Yeah.
Dan Ego's on the card. And then there's a few prelim fights, Dagestanis, which they've got to prove. People are shitting on them lately that they're wrestlers, that they're very boring
style of fighting.
But they might come out with direction from the UFC, direction from Dana White. Hey, put on some entertaining fights.
You know, the last Dagestani fighter that just wrestled his way, Muhammad Makayev, he's been cut.
Yeah,
so go out there and put on a show.
So the pressure's on these guys. You just never know. And the fact that there's kind of like the Shara the Bullet. There's some characters on there that,
Makayev's going to be in and around the facilities.
He said he's going to be there?
Well, he's having a wrestling match against Raul Rosas Jr. the night before the pay-per-view.
And Power Slap's on as well.
So there's some events around there.
So look, but from start to finish, the card has the potential to put on amazing fights, and it's got the ramifications. It's got the big name parts to it as well. Like UFC 300, what made it good was it had the big names on it and it delivered. So this card as well has the big names on it and can deliver.
And I think the styles that have been matched up in this fight, you saw what Whittaker did to Ikram Aliskerov, I think, it's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, but look,
He's going to come out and try and strike.
a lot of
Topuria and Max Holloway, they're going to come out and try and strike. So the fact that these fighters and these fight styles and their matchups have the ability to put on good fights, I definitely think this could be the card of the year.
I know we're considered fairly new fans in the UFC space, but a lot of the old school fans, they're taking to Twitter, they're taking to TikTok, and they've put out edits of the feeling when Robert Whittaker and Max Holloway get knocked out in the first round, and it's just people crying. It's people. So that a lot of
UFC want to see it happen. It'll be the exact same thing that we felt with Volk.
A lot of UFC fans could be left disappointed and crying after this weekend when their favorite fighters of the last 5-6 years get knocked out in terrible fashion.
Yeah, I don't want to see it, but then again, I'm an Ilia fan.
Yeah,
I like what he's been
I'm an
doing.
Ilia and Khamzat fan. I know,
Yeah.
like I said, we're fairly new compared to some other UFC fans. But they're two guys I've gotten around, and they're fighting this weekend, so I'm sorry.
Let's go into our multis, Nick. Our predictions for UFC 308. I'm going to start with mine. Okay, I'm starting with Shara the Bullet Magomedov to win.
Magomedov.
Shara the Bullet Magomedov.
Magomedov. You get the names mixed up.
It's very hard with these Dagestanis. I'm just going to call him Shara the Bullet. Shara the Bullet to win. Magomed Ankalaev to win. I'm missing the Dan Ige fight. I'm going Khamzat Chimaev to win via TKO. Okay. And Ilia Topuria to win via submission.
So Khamzat by TKO.
Khamzat by TKO.
Yeah, look, I can see him getting it done by submission or even. He's a tough fighter. It's a tough fight to see happen. But if he mauls him and then just kind of destroys him on the ground, you get your TKO.
Yeah.
But my multi, it's already in my bet slip. Okay.
Go.
There's an Abu Dhabi rule that if there's Dagestanis on the card, you back him to win. Now, not everyone on this multi is Dagestani, but I think they're Muslim or if they got the home crowd advantage coming into these fights. So that's Khamzat Chimaev
Hang
to
on,
win.
so this is a Dagestani multi.
Basically a Dagestani multi.
Okay.
Khamzat Chimaev to win head-to-head.
Yep.
Maitabek Olabai head-to-head on the prelims.
Pronunciation was great.
Abbas Magomedov head-to-head.
A lot of Magomedovs.
Shara Magomedov head-to-head.
The Bullet.
Magomed Ankalaev head-to-head. And Ilia Topuria head-to-head. It's great value. They're all the favorites, essentially, but they should get it done. With this home crowd advantage, it's the people the UFC want to win. This multi's winning.
Might even scratch my multi and just back the Dagestani multi that you just said, including Ilia Topuria, obviously.
Including Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, I like Khamzat. You're right. Maybe TKO is a bit of a stretch. Could be done by submission. I think Ilia, I'm just going to have a side piece on Ilia Topuria by submission. I think they're going to strike it out, and then he's going to get the better of him in wrestling.
Really, actually, you know what? Ilia Topuria is from Georgia. Dagestani, Georgia, they're not far from each other. It's all a part of the Caucasus area. So you could say it's the Caucasus multi.
Okay, I'm going to scratch my multi. I'm going to have a little play on Ilia Topuria via submission by itself, and I'm riding the Dagestani multi. So there you have it. The Dagestani multi, it's great value. Get behind it. It's going to be a great card
Hey, I'll
nonetheless.
tell the fighters, hey, I've backed you this week, so the pressure's on.
Yeah,
I'll let them know in person.
And look, we love Robert Whittaker. Okay, we've met him in person. Great bloke, great fighter.
But money's on the line here, Robert. I'm
Money's
sorry.
on the line, Rob. I apologize. If you win, it doesn't matter. It's going to be bittersweet for us because we're getting behind the Aussie anyway.
I'll still be stirred that I lost money, but whatever. I'll let it go.
Well, there you have it. That is our UFC 308 preview, especially of the main card. It's going to be some great fights. It's going to be a great event. Keep an eye out on our YouTube for upcoming UFC fighter interviews. We got Khamzat coming up. We've got Whittaker lined up. It's going to be very entertaining. Max and Ilia, let us know what questions you want us to ask them. But keep an eye out at K Roos Bros over on YouTube and for all the clips at Jon-Bernard K on Instagram. But thank you so much for tuning in. Ryan, back to you in the studio.